Okay, so in this screencast, what I'm going to do is look at what is usually the first part of any English language paper, and it's reading for information. Essentially, reading for information is simply picking out the stuff which answers the question. It is no more complicated than that, and it is the way in which you can get some fairly quick and easy marks early on in the exam. So, what we intend to do then, we tend to find out what it is, what it's asking us to do. And remember, right from the very, very beginning, what we're doing is we're trying to get inside the head of the examiner and working out what the examiner wants. Understanding the importance of reading the question carefully, looking for clues about where to find the relevant information, and then avoiding some common pitfalls, such as explaining the information or writing the wrong stuff down. Sounds fairly obvious, but you would be amazed how many people lose marks because they just misread the question and they actually write the wrong stuff down. So, what's the examiner looking for? Well, one of the first things the examiner looks for is, can you read carefully? Both the question and the text. Again, none of this is rocket science. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know, but I do think it's quite useful every now and again just to be reminded. So can you read carefully? Can you read the question carefully? Can you read the text carefully? Can you write your answers clearly, unlike my writing this morning, which is a bit spidery? Apologies for that. Can you communicate the stuff you've read into what you write down? Okay, so making sure that from reading carefully to writing carefully. And what the examiner is not looking for is you getting bogged down by details you don't need. Okay, that's going to make the examiner sad, and you'll get rubbish marks. So again, this is a fairly straightforward first question. So what we'll do now is we'll look at a couple of passages, and we'll just think about how should we answer them in a way that the examiner will be happy and not sad. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a passage, and this is a typical sort of question that you'll get in the exam. List 4 things you learn about why the pumpkin crop will be down on last year. You will often have fairly boring passages to read. You'll often have fairly boring questions. You just need to get on with it and do what the examiner tells you to do. And just think that after a couple of hours, hopefully you'll be free and you'll never have to do this again. It sounds like I'm being a bit glib about this, and in some respects I am, but actually the skills that you're being examined on are just so important. You know, the ability to read for information, to pick out relevant points, it's just such an important skill, not just for school and college and university, but also when you get into into work. I mean, I spend so much of my time in my job, obviously as a teacher, reading things quickly and pulling out the stuff that's important, and you'll find in pretty much every job you go into it is the same thing. So although the exam itself is frankly a little bit dry, and you'll probably be sitting there thinking, what's the point very often? Actually, the skills that you are being examined on are extremely important and extremely vital. So suck it up, get on with it, and just think, I am learning useful skills. So this question here, 4 things you learn about why the pumpkin crop will be down on last year. Okay, so what I'd like to do is I'd like you to have a think about that question. And I would like you to, when I move on to the next slide, just to pause the recording and just seeing if you can pick 4 things out. Okay, so hopefully you'll have had a chance to read this through because you've paused the recording. Let's just read it through. This comes from a newspaper article published a week or so ago. It's not from an exam paper. And let's see what sort of things that we would pick out. Farmers say there will be a shortage of pumpkins this Halloween, as the bad summer weather means the crop is down by 20% and many are still green. Pumpkin growers in Lincolnshire are now racing against time to get the harvest finished before the frost claims more of their crop. David Bowman pumpkins, around 40% are still green because of the cold weather. It's terrible, pumpkins don't like the wet and cold, and that's what we've had all summer. This farm usually produces 2 million a year. So, look at the question again. 4 things you'll learn about why the pumpkin crop will be down on last year. It's not pumpkins in general, it's why the pumpkin crop will be down. So let's look at see what it says about why the pumpkins will be reduced. Okay, so straight away we can see there, bad summer weather. Okay, so there's one. Why it will be down. Many are still green. There's another one. It links together, but it's a different part of the same question, and that would be fine. The frost is another one. We've had bad summer weather. We've had pumpkins don't like the wet and cold. So although it's all the similar stuff, it's all linked together, there are actually 4 different pieces of information. Bad summer weather, many crops are still green because of the bad summer weather, and there's frost, and there's wet and cold. So you can see there straight away, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's what I would do. I would actually mark and annotate on the answer paper, and I would write down a number beside each one. You'll find that in your exam paper there'll be way more. If they're asking you for 4, there are probably going to be 8. So that's the kind of thing you would do, and then what you would do is you would write it down. You would simply write down the answers in a list if it's asking you, or in full sentence if it's asking you. You wouldn't explain. You wouldn't, unless it's asking you to directly quote. You can put it in your own words. It really all depends on the paper. What I'll do is in future screencasts I will actually look at specific exam papers. So these are just generic skills. Read the question, read the passage, pick the stuff out. Okay, it's your turn now. This is the next passage comes from the Daily Mirror from last week, and it's about a load of pigs who ate their owner, which is bizarre, but there we are. And the question I've posed here: what reasons are given for why the pigs ate their owner? So what I'd like you to do again: pause the video, read the article, pick out at least 4 bits of information that suggest why the pigs did what they did. So I'll just go on to the next slide. 4 bits of information that suggests why the pigs ate their owner. Okay, so you've had a chance to read through the passage, and now what we need to do is we need to look at 4 bits of information that we learn about the reason why the pigs might have eaten their owner. I'm not going to read this through now because you've had a chance to read it. So let's just skim it through. And this is what I would do: is I would just go through and I would say, okay, why did the pigs eat their owner? So the family found his dentures and pieces of body. No, that's not about why. There we are. Mr. Garner had a medical emergency, such as a heart attack, or was knocked over by the animals. But criminal activity. So actually we've got 1, 2, 3. We've got 3 possibilities there just in that one short paragraph. And that will often be what happens in these exams. You'll often get lots of information in a very short space of time, and a lot of the rest of it won't be relevant to that particular question. If another question comes up which is asking you about opinions, then obviously, which we'll come on to in a future screencast, then that's fine. But actually here, you've got 3 there, 3 possibilities. And there's another one down here. Domestic pigs are not typically known to be aggressive, but there's some degree of danger associated with any animal. And there's another one. One had either bitten or been aggressive with Mr. Garner previously. So we can see there, it's just bits of information that you'd write down, and then when you get the answers down, it might be something like this. Something like, he might have had a heart attack. Heart rather than heat. Apologies for my writing. Knocked down by the animals. You get the impression. You get the idea. So on and so forth. What you don't do is write really long, complicated sentences. You're being marked on your spelling, your punctuation and your grammar. If you write great big long sentences, you're more likely to go wrong. It's obvious really. The more you write, the more potentially you might make mistakes. So if it's asking you for 4 bits of information, just write those 4 bits of information down. Don't start going into great big long sentences. Don't think you've got to say things like the first reason, the second reason, blah, 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 unless it's specifically asking you to do that. If it's just asking you to pick out 4 bits of information, write those 4 bits of information down. Don't start going on about any sort of explanation, because that you can easily tie yourself up in knots. So that really is, it's that straightforward. You read the passage, you read the question first. Yeah, read the question first, read the passage, underline, do take a highlighter or at least a pencil into your exam as well as your pen, because it's just easier, I find, than sticking ink all over it. I mean, if you don't, it's not the end of the world, but highlighters are useful because you can quickly highlight the stuff that's important. Put numbers beside it, just so that you can differentiate it maybe from a future question. And then you just write down your answers fairly quickly, fairly clearly, and then job done. So recap. Okay, what sort of things are we going to think about? So, first one, read the question carefully before you read the passage. Okay? I would say that's a really critical one, because if you don't, you read passively. In other words, you're reading, you've no idea why you're reading. So read the question carefully first, pick out what it's asking you to do. And I would say underline as well. Okay, pick out and underline the task. What specific thing is this passage asking you to do, this question asking you to do? Okay, only choose the information relevant to the question. Don't get bogged down. Okay, double check. Keep going back to the question. Okay, keep going back, keep moving back into that question all the time. Every time you find a piece of information, go back and double check just to make sure that it is relevant to the question. Think, okay, is that piece of information going to answer that question? If not, it's not worth picking out. I'm going to have to find something. Don't get bogged down by irrelevancies. Okay, write the answer in the correct format. Is it full sentences? Is it just single words? Are they asking you to use quotes? Are they asking you to put things in your own language, in your own words? Again, it comes all the way back to reading the question carefully. I may be hammering the point home here. You may have noticed that. It's quite important to read the question carefully. Final point. Don't, unless it asks you, don't get bogged down by explanation. Okay? Unless it's asking you to explain yourself, which at the beginning of a language exam it rarely does, and certainly the exam boards I've taught on it never does, don't get bogged down by explanation, just write those facts down. Usually this question's worth no more than 4 or 5 marks out of a potential 80 overall. In the AQA exam it's worth 4 marks out of 80. You know, that's 4 minutes worth really. You shouldn't be spending any more than 4 or 5 minutes answering these questions. So don't get bogged down by irrelevancies. Read the question, find the stuff, and then write it down. Okay, as before, I'm building up a website, thirdspaceacademy.org. It's not much on there at the moment, but as you check back, there will be more and more information available to you.